I want to go ahead and get started because I want to respect your time. I really appreciate everybody coming out today. This is a great crowd, folks. I'm pleasantly surprised that so many people were willing to brave the cold and the craziness to get over here today. There's tons of food. So please, if you want seconds, just get up and get seconds, or if you want to wait afterwards, grab seconds, and I might even be able to scare up a doggy bag or two if we got some spare at the end. So what I wanted to do today was take a few minutes to talk to you about what's gone on up in Topeka since I got up here. I swore in on the 11th of January. I'm going to take a few minutes to talk about what's gone on because it's been a really busy session already. And then I'm going to take as long as you want to take to answer questions. And if folks can't stay for the whole thing, I only advertised an hour. You ain't hurt my feelings if you get up and leave. I won't assume you didn't like something I said. So if you do need to go, please. I'm sorry I won't be able to say goodbye to you, but feel free to get and go. But I want to be as available as I possibly can, because one of the commitments that I made when I was running is that I was going to be accessible and I was going to listen to you, and so I'm going to take as much time to listen to you. And you know what? If you're not comfortable asking a question in front of everybody, or because it's going to be posted, you can catch me after. And I've got some cards and stuff if you want a card, and you can contact me after. Because the other big commitment I've made is, I'm up there to vote on bills, and I'm up there to propose things to get done for our town, but I'm also up there to help you fight with state government. So if you're having some kind of issue with, a lot of folks I've talked to are having problems with unemployment. A lot of folks I'm talking to have not heard anything about vaccines and would like to get a vaccine. I want you to have my contact information so that I can be 100% available to you for that. So if you don't feel comfortable asking the question here, make sure you get contact info from me. I want to thank a couple people that helped me put this together today. First of all, I want to thank the Bontai team here. They're awesome, and they put up with a lot of crap over the last year of me running and events and last minute stuff. So if I could get a round of applause. I also want to thank my campaign manager, Melinda Harbor, there. Thank you. And if I'm busy talking to 12 people and you ain't got time to grab contact info from me, she can get it. And I want to thank Tracy Ramey from Watch Kansas for helping me with the technology today to get this started. So I want a few big things really happen just out of the gate with the legislature, and I want to talk about those. They're really they're the first two bills I voted on, and it was in the big session. I want to talk about each of them. The first one I want to talk about is the emergency management vote that I took. So Governor Kelly's emergency declaration, or latest emergency declaration in a series of emergency declarations, was going to end on January 26th, a couple days ago. And so if she was asking the legislature to extend her disaster declaration. I got a lot of letters from folks and emails from folks and calls from folks. They're like, we're done. Don't vote for this thing. And so I wanted to take a minute. I ended up voting for it, and I want to take a minute to explain why. On May 21st, the last day of the last session, with I think a handful of folks that are here in this room, I was on the lawn of the Capitol demanding that we do something to put a check on the governor's emergency powers, because the emergency statute was not written for 11 months of COVID. The emergency statute was written for a tornado or a flood, when you need an executive that can quickly cut through red tape to get help where it needs to be, right? It was not written for 11 months of prolonged COVID. And it gave the governor a lot of powers with really no checks on that power. And this is not a commentary on whether she's used that power wisely or unwisely. I think you guys know my opinion on some of the decisions she's made. but it was a commentary on the fact that in a republic, in a democracy, in our form of government, no one person wields unlimited power. That's how our Constitution's written. That's how the U.S. Constitution's written. Every person in our government has a check on their power, and that's what keeps us free. Is that no one person wields power with no check on their power. And I said this during the campaign. My philosophy is always that decisions that affect our lives should be made by elected people, not unelected people, and that there should be checks on those powers. And so on May 21st, I was out there with 200 of my closest friends that I just met, most of them, demanding that the legislature do something to put a check on her power. They did that. What they did do was they added a stipulation that counties could opt out of her executive orders. It wasn't perfect. It's not the best mechanism, but it was a mechanism that they could quickly put in place to put a check on her power. And that's why, for instance, we have the governor has issued a mandatory mask order, but our county opted out of it. Now our city has made their own ordinance, which they have the power to do under home rule, whether I personally like it or not. They have the power to do that. But the governor's orders, the county has the ability to opt out of. That statute was at risk if we didn't extend the disaster declaration, because a lot of people, when they were writing me, their impression was, well, if we don't extend her disaster declaration, this is just all over. She won't be able to give any executive orders. She won't be able to do any of the things she was doing before, and all the restrictions will be lifted, and we'll be back to normal. And that's not true, because if we had not extended her disaster declaration, the next day she would have just declared another disaster, which is what she was doing with the legislature over and over again until we got that law in June that gave the counties the ability to opt out. So in order to preserve that check on her power, we had to extend the disaster declaration. But that was not, frankly, good enough for me. I still was not going to extend it unless we did something to end her power to close businesses or close churches. Because according to that law that was passed in June that gave the counties the ability to opt out of her orders, she was able to close businesses with still no check on her power for 15 days. She could have shut down the entire state for 15 days and nobody could have done anything about it until that 15 days was over. And I think that there's mounting evidence that the shutdowns did more harm than good, because people still have to eat and they still have to go to Walmart and get the groceries, and Walmart's less safe than a lot of those small businesses that she would be able to shut down. And so I was adamant that I would not vote, and a number of other legislators were adamant that we would not vote to extend her disaster declaration until there were additional limits put in her power that she could not shut down businesses and churches. And we were able to get that in the statute, and she knew that she had to accept that. And so it was really not a party line vote to extend the disaster declaration. It was bipartisan. There was single-digit legislators that did not vote to extend her disaster declaration with the continuation of the county's ability to opt out and the limit on her ability to shut down businesses and churches. And so I voted for that along with all but a handful of legislators. We're not done. Okay, this thing's like put together with duct tape and baling wire right now. It's still ugly. What we really need is to go back to the emergency management statute and update it for, these long-term disasters. So if there's a COVID-21, God forbid, if there's a COVID-21 or there's some other kind of long-term disaster, we're not going through all this over again. And so that work is happening, okay? It's slow. There's a lot of fighting in committees and legislation, and whenever you're writing laws, you got 125 people up there, the 125 opinions, and that's all being fought through. And so that's the other reason that we had to extend the disaster declaration, is so that we could keep it going until we got better laws in place that hopefully, my hope is that it codifies some of what we've got now in the emergency management statute, so that the next governor or the next disaster, they don't have to go through all this over again, because it's, we all know in this room, it's devastated our economy. I mean, how many restaurants have closed? How many small businesses have closed since we started this emergency? And so the next disaster, the next event, they should not have to relearn all the lessons that we've learned over these 11 hard months. And so that's why I voted on it. We can talk about it more in questions if you got questions. Another big vote that happened right out of the gate, and as a matter of fact, the very next day, is the value them both amendment. So last year they tried to pass this thing, and it failed by 4 votes in the House. One of them was the guy I replaced, Jeff Pittman, who's now our senator. So there's a lot out there, you know, because passions are high whenever you're talking about abortion. So I wanted to take a minute to talk to you about what we actually did and what we didn't do, because there's a lot of people saying we did things that we didn't do. What the Value Them Both Amendment does is reverse a Supreme Court decision from April of 2019. In April 2019, the Kansas Supreme Court was hearing a case on a dismemberment abortion bill that had been passed by the legislature but had been challenged in court. When they rendered the decision in April 2019, they basically said that there is a right in the Kansas Constitution under the clause that says life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That clause means that there's an inalienable right to an abortion in this state. That's what they said. I disagree. I disagree that life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness means, you know, you can have an unlimited abortion, because that's effectively what it did. Was it made the bar, if it's an inalienable right to have an abortion, the bar for any restrictions on that are just like the bars on restrictions against your speech, or the bars against your restriction to, you know, to go to church or peaceably assemble, right? That's what they said. Abortion is unequal with your freedom of speech, right? And so the standard was so high that any restriction on abortion has to be tested against that highest standard. So we're not talking about, we're not talking about bans on abortion. What we're talking about is your teenager can't have an abortion without talking to the parents first or getting the parents' permission. Taxpayers shouldn't have to fund an abortion, because a lot of taxpayers don't believe that abortion is is morally wrong. There should be some basic cleanliness standards in an abortion clinic that's going to perform this medical procedure. Those are restrictions that are already on the book. And every one of those restrictions, I'm going to say this twice because it's really important. Every one of those restrictions that's on the books right now has an exception for in cases of rape, incest, or the life of the mother. Every one of those restrictions has those exceptions in the law. Okay? And this amendment does nothing to affect those restrictions. All this amendment does is vacate that Supreme Court decision and go back to where we were in April 2019, where me and you and every Kansan has the right through their legislature to place these common sense restrictions on the abortion industry that even a lot of pro-choice people believe. A lot of pro-choice people believe that a 12-year-old shouldn't be able to go into a clinic and get an abortion without a parental consent, unless it's like a case of incest. There are clauses in that statute that if that's because of incest or rape or something like that, there are legal mechanisms for that exception. But even a lot of pro-choice people believe that a teen shouldn't be able to just walk into Planned Parenthood and get an abortion and their parents never know about it. And I happen to agree with them, and I'm not pro-choice, I'm pro-life. But so this amendment just takes us back to April 2019 to protect all of those restrictions that are on the books. Because if we don't pass this amendment, and because the House passed it 2 weeks ago or a week ago, and the Senate passed it on Thursday, 2/3 majority. So now it's going to go on a ballot, and everybody in this room, if you choose to exercise your right to vote, you're going to get the chance to vote personally on whether this becomes a constitutional amendment. And if it doesn't get 50% plus one, then it doesn't matter what the legislature thinks. It's not going to be an amendment to the Constitution. But if 50% plus one vote yes on the abortion amendment, on this amendment, value them both, then we'll go back to where we were in April 2019. All of those restrictions that are on the books will be protected. And in the future, if the legislature wants to make some restriction on the practice of abortion that makes sense, like reinstating the dismemberment abortion ban, or I think it was New York or it was Massachusetts, I think, just passed a law that you can have an abortion up to the moment of birth. I personally think that should be illegal, and so I think maybe we should have a law on that. So some legislator in the future may want to pass that law, and if they get a majority vote, they can place that restriction on the practice of abortion. The guy who used to hold this seat, who's now our state senator, Jeff Pittman, in the paper today, there's a story about it. He said, well, the reason I didn't vote for this is because it didn't protect exceptions for rape, incest, or the life of the mother. Well, that doesn't really make sense, because all those restrictions are on the books, and all those exceptions are already on the books. And all this law does is protect the laws that are on the books. So it doesn't do anything to affect rape, incest, or life of the mother. So that doesn't make a lot of sense. And then I'll tell you what, as soon as the Senate passed it and I put it on Facebook, I got about 500 comments from people saying we're trying to ban abortion. I didn't vote to ban abortion. I voted to give you the right to vote on this amendment that protects current restrictions. And there's nothing in the language of this amendment that says anything about banning abortion. And frankly, I also got a lot of angry letters and emails from people that want me to go up there and ban abortion. And you know what? The U.S. Supreme Court has primacy over the state of Kansas. And for now, Roe v. Wade is the law. And so if we had gone up there and we had tried to pass a ban on abortion, even if we had made it a Kansas constitutional amendment, it would have just got struck down, and we would be right back where we were with this Kansas Supreme Court decision. So, there are people on both ends of this issue that are very upset with what we did in the legislature. But I promised when I campaigned that I was going to vote for this amendment. I ran on this amendment. I was endorsed by Kansas for Life because I promised to vote yes on this resolution so that you could vote on this amendment, and that's what I did. And so I wanted to take a minute to talk about that. Another campaign promise that I made, and I'm going to try to buck the trend by going to Topeka and actually fulfilling some campaign promises. I know that's unusual to hear a politician actually do that, but I'm going to try to do that. Another promise that I made that I was going to try to bring jobs and opportunity back to Kansas and back to Leavenworth, because we have our unemployment's gone. Our unemployment problem was well above the Kansas average even before coronavirus, and now the coronavirus has hit. We've got gobs of people out of work, and so there are two big issues up there that directly affect this problem that I ran on, that I said I was gonna fight every day to fix. The first of those is property taxes. So if you've gotten your property tax bill, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but we just had our valuations come in, and the county of Leavenworth had the highest valuation increases in the entire state of Kansas. 6.5%, give or take a point, a tenth of a percent. And so what that means is when the county assessor went out to all of the houses in Leavenworth County, he said that they're all worth, whether you did anything to them or not, even if you just mowed the lawn for a year, they're worth 6.5% more than they were last year. And here in the city of Leavenworth, even in the city of Leavenworth, our valuations went up 4.5%. I can't speak to the whole county of Leavenworth, but I can speak to the city of Leavenworth. I own properties here, I own houses here that we restore so people can rent. I restore buildings so we can rent out to businesses so people can have jobs. And real estate here is not worth 4.5% more than it was a year ago. As a matter of fact, right now you can't give away a damn building in town. Just ask the folks that own the old High Noon Saloon there. They can't give the building away. You know, our friend June, June Meyer that owns June's Northland, she's been trying to retire for a year. She can't find anybody to buy the building. So don't tell me that buildings are worth 4.5% more than they were last year. So you might be thinking to yourself, and the folks watching at home might be thinking to themselves, well, okay, what the heck does that have to do with jobs? Well, businesses pay many times more in property taxes than houses, right? We're all valued, you know, we all get a valuation, but the property taxes for a commercial building are many times higher than the property taxes for a house. And that's a huge bite out of your bottom line. Even before COVID, that's a huge bite out of your bottom line. And at the end of the day, that's money that you would use to hire people. And that's money that you would use to give raises to incentivize people to come work for you, which is going to lead to the next part, but I'll talk about that in a second. What are we going to do about it? So these in the statute right now, there's what's called a tax lid. It basically means that counties and cities, if they want to raise the mill levy, which is basically what you multiply the valuation times to figure out your property tax, if they want to raise the tax lid, they have to have a vote of the people. But what all the cities and counties are doing is what our county's doing, which is raising the valuation. And then they raise the valuation, and then the county doesn't have to hold the vote of the people on whether to raise taxes. The taxes just go up. Our taxes, you know, spoiler alert, our taxes are going up 6.5% this year because they raised the valuation 6.5%. And they can have a big article in the Leavenworth Times that says taxes remain flat. County votes to keep taxes flat, and they're off the hook because they didn't do it. The county assessor did it. They didn't do it. Whenever I give this talk, the city commissioners all come back and say, I didn't raise taxes, the county assessor did it. Well, my taxes went up, right? And so we got to figure out a way to close this back door. And there's a bill that was just passed in the Senate that I'm supporting when it's coming to the House, and I'm supporting it, which will basically make county commissioners and city commissioners vote if the taxes are going to go up. Whether it's by their mill levy or by the assessment, they're going to have to raise their hand and say, yeah, I want to raise the tax burden on my citizens this year. And so that might cause them to maybe bump the mill levy down a little bit when they get these big windfalls. Here in the city of Leavenworth, the property tax revenue coming into the city has gone up $100,000 to $200,000 every year for the last couple of years, and they haven't raised the mill levy a cent. And so every year you see in the Leavenworth Times, when the budget hearing happens, city commission votes to keep taxes flat, and our taxes go up $100,000 to $200,000 every year. And so if we can get that back door closed to raising our taxes, it'll put more revenue in the pockets of business owners so that they can go out and they can hire people. But the problem, there's another half of the problem.
When does it become blatant criminality?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, with this backdoor stuff, I
Right.
know they're doing it.
Yeah.
But how
It's completely legal right now, and so we got to make it illegal, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to create a mechanism that closes the back door so they do it. I know it. Believe me, we're talking about my bottom line.
I know.
So,
It's really unfair when everyone has to try and
You're
play
right.
by the rules while they don't.
Yeah.
And it's just really,
You're right.
very tired.
You're right.
Tired
That's
of it
what
all.
I got tired enough to go run for office. Yes, sir.
I know you want to tie this
Yeah.
into your next point,
Yeah.
but before you go on real quick. Okay, so who does this guy work for?
The assessor?
Yeah.
Well, he works for the county commissioners, but, I mean, he works for the county commissioners, he works for the county manager, but he really works for us, but he's not elected.
Yeah.
And I
Okay.
just told you at the beginning of this, that I think the decisions that affect people's lives should be made by elected officials and
Absolutely.
subject to checks and balances.
Right.
And if the city commissioners and the county commissioners have to vote on it, and then we're their check and balance. If we don't like how they voted, we get to do something about it at the next election, because some of them are up for election every 2 years, and so that's
So how do we make that happen? I mean,
Yeah.
you're our representative
Yeah.
of the state.
yep.
How do we make that happen locally? To get
yeah.
the commissioners to, come online and
Yeah.
say, yep, I'm the guy to blame.
Yeah, well, so if you're not on my mailing list, and I know
Oh,
you are,
yeah.
if you're not on my mailing list, I encourage you to get on my mailing list, because I'm intensely interested, you might say, in budget meetings and tax meetings that happen at the county and the city. And so whenever those things are happening, I send out an email to all the people on my list. And right now, I got about 1,200 people total, and about 800 or 900 of them are here in the city of Leavenworth. But I also have people from around the county. And so if you get on my email list, what I do is I tell you, hey, this is happening. If you want to have a voice in it, email your county or city commissioners. And then I put little buttons in the email, so all you got to do is click, and it'll generate an email so you can contact your city commissioners. But honestly, I encourage it. I mean, I know we're all, a lot of us are working people, and we can't just get up in the middle of the morning and go to the city commission or county commission. But I also tell you when those meetings are, and if you do have time, it might behoove you to show up and give a little public comment and tell them what you think about our property tax valuations going up.
Well, yeah, I understand all
Yeah.
that, but as you were saying, what we need to do
Yeah.
is to get the people who should be on the blame line, who's
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
How do we get them on the blame line? And
Yeah.
what mechanism is there
Yeah.
to change the ordinance, change the law, to
Yeah.
hold their feet to the fire, and not
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
unnamed bureaucrat?
Yeah, there were a lot of different kind of ideas bouncing around, and one of them was to make the assessor an elected position. It's my understanding that the assessor used to be an elected position.
Well,
But, I really think that it's kind of like most people, when I was walking around, I was knocking doors, there are a lot of people who didn't even know who the mayor was. They still thought it was Jermaine Wilson, and that's like 2 mayors ago. And I'm not making fun of voters, it's just you're busy and people aren't paying attention. And, I campaign when I was running for the state house, and I was still meeting people on election day that didn't know I was running for the, I knocked like 4,000 doors, how do you not know at this point? But it's just, people are busy and people have busy lives. And so I really think that making most people do know when the county commission elections happen and when the city commission elections happen. So I think those are the people to hold accountable. Because they can, if they don't like it, they can do something about it. They just choose to not do anything about it because then it's not their fault. Oh, it's that bad county assessor. I don't like that guy. He's mean. I don't even know him. He's probably a great guy. But they could drop the mill levy, and they choose not to because there's no mechanism to hold them accountable. I think this would hold them accountable for the fact that the taxes went up. That's kind of where I understand the argument of making the county assessor an elected position, but they did it before and it didn't fix the problem.
I guess what I'm saying is that even
Yeah.
if you don't make him an elected official,
Yeah.
once he says, okay, here's my assessment,
Yeah.
that's when the county commission
Yeah.
should say,
No, absolutely.
we have to vote on
Yeah,
whether we
and that's-
approve this or not.
That's what this bill's gonna do.
Okay.
When the assessments go up,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden the city's gonna make another 100 or 200,000.
Yeah.
They have to vote, yes, we wanna take an extra 100 and 200,000 of the city's money, the citizens' money this year.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't vote, if they refuse to vote, the mill levy gets cut by whatever that amount was, and they make the same as they did last year.
Right.
And so it's not a perfect, and something else, I appreciate you dwelling on this, because I could talk about this for 3 days, but I'm a local control guy. In my heart, I don't want the federal government telling the state what to do. I don't want the state telling the county what to do. I don't want the county telling the city what to do. But it's broke. It's broke. And I feel that there's some role for the state in protecting people from runaway municipal and county spending. I just do. I could not tell you. I mean, we've gotten windfalls in the county and the city every year for years and years and years, while the paper says taxes stay flat, taxes stay flat. I don't know where the money's going. Our population's not going up that much. I think when the next census comes out, you're gonna find out Leavenworth lost people, because I watch them moving every day. I live in North Leavenworth, I watch them packing up their crap and leaving. I don't know where the money's going, so, but they're spending it, and right now, there's really no penalty for them with the voters for doing it, so, yes, sir.
So your bill is to hold the city and county commissioners responsible for voting yes or no on any increase.
So,
So why couldn't you
Yeah.
also tie in with that of requiring a county or city budget to be placed someplace so this
Yeah.
city, and also at the end of the year, what it was spent for? And also tying it into, say, the state gross national product.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just making
So,
that up.
first I wanna make sure this, I am supporting this bill, but this was Karen Tyson's good idea, and I'm not gonna take credit for her good idea. But I'm fully supportive of it, I'm gonna support it when it comes over to the House, but it was Senator Tyson's idea, so I don't wanna take credit for her work. But, it is all already published, it's just we're so darn busy.
I've tried to go
Yeah.
down to the
Yeah.
county and get
Yeah.
a copy
Yeah.
of the budget, and they gave me so much red tape.
Yeah,
I just
they
finally
gave you a
gave it up.
website and then asked you to navigate it yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. And it's at the city, you gotta click 50 clicks to get to where you find the budget. I'm a nerd, so I did it, but, most people don't do it. But so, yeah, so there's, but I really think that bringing it, they could make it as, they could put a, bright yellow banner on their website saying, click here to find out how much money we're
Sure.
taking from you, and most people would never go to the website. I really think that the thing to do is to bring the conversation into the county or the city commission meeting and make them vote, yes, I'm gonna take more citizens' money this year. Because right now, they don't have to vote.
But there ought to be a limit too on
Yeah.
what percentage they can
Yeah.
increase it from year to
Yeah.
year.
Yeah,
And it
that
should
was
be-
another scheme that was out there, and actually, when I was running, I was really, I really thought that you should like make a cap on how much stuff can go up. But
Yeah.
this is what's coming through, and this is what's got their support, and I think it achieves the same goal. There are a lot of solutions to it, but, there's 125 ideas in the House and another 40 in the Senate.
Understand.
So this is the one that they tried to do last year, and it almost passed, and then the governor vetoed it, and they couldn't get enough people to override the veto. So I think this is a positive step, and it's something we
You
can
think
get
it'll
done.
pass?
I think it will this year.
Okay.
I mean, if we got value in both passed, I think we're gonna be able to beat a governor's veto on it.
I'm Terry Lois Bashburn, I'm the new Register of Deeds, and.
Not the county assessor.
And while we are on the issue of the assessor used to be an elected position, now it's appointed, I want you to know that there is a little bit of a movement that they're trying to make county clerk, the treasurer, and the Register of Deeds appointed positions no longer
Hey, Russell.
elected. And I would argue that to the nth degree, because my third day in office, when they asked me why did I ask for a salary cut, it was because now I hold the position and I have the power to do something about it. If that had been an appointed position, I would not have been able to challenge the sitting Register of Deeds and do something about it. It's the closer that the positions are to accountability to the people, the better the government is run. So please just keep that in mind if that discussion starts coming, that we need vocal people to say, no, we want it to be an elected position.
But
Terry, when are they thinking about trying to do this, and how
Yeah.
can they do it?
So it has already passed the Senate, it's coming to us now, and I think it's gonna pass the House. And of course, the governor will veto it again this year, but I think we got the votes to override the veto. So I think this session, the session ends in May, so if we're gonna pass a bill, we gotta have it passed in May. I think it's gonna be passed in May.
Well-
And then, after that, if they wanna raise our taxes, they have to vote on it.
Well, the thing of it is, it just doesn't affect you homeowners, it affects renters, because
Oh,
right
yeah.
now I'm getting rented right out of the
Yeah,
house.
yeah, you're absolutely
They keep
right.
raising my rent.
You're absolutely right, and I actually did a video on this when I was running. That's what people, there's a myth in Leavenworth that the reason the rents are so high is because the soldiers get reimbursed at such high rates. Most of the majors on post live down in Lansing because, we've got some issues up in my neighborhood. which I'm trying to fix, because of the joblessness. You got some criminals preying on the population up there. I mean, it's horrible. They just found a dead body a block from my house last night, 6th and Kickapoo. It's a block from my house. I drove by it last night when we were leaving the restaurant at 1:30 in the morning. I mean, it's tragic, but it's because of the poverty up there, and it's scaring off all the renters. The reason I really went off on a tangent. The reason the rent is so high is because the property owner has to pay the mortgage, but they also have to pay the property tax. The property tax is going up 5% every year, 6% every year. I mean, some years it's been up in the 8% range. So a couple years ago, it was 8% valuation increase. The houses ain't worth 8% more than they were last year, let me tell you.
Yeah, and the guy that owns my house doesn't even live in Kansas, he lives in Missouri.
Yeah. And so he's, he doesn't know you. I mean, sometimes it's like a rental manager, and the rental managers, the property owners say, hey, I gotta pay the mortgage. And so this affects everybody who lives here, not just the folks that own property. So the other half of the jobs equation, because the property taxes do affect the ability of people to, the business owners to hire, is that you have to have the employees to hire. And something that's happened here over the course of COVID is we've got a really big problem with our unemployment. And I'm gonna try to unpack it here, but we might have to have a sidebar if you have more questions, because it's really complicated. Kansas is number 3 in the United States right now for unemployment claims. Not per capita, total jobless claims. And the reason is not because we have people unemployed. There's like maybe 2 or 3 million workers in Kansas. There were like 1 million jobless claims in Kansas. And our unemployment's only 10%. So that the vast majority, don't want to do public math, but like 90%, if those numbers are right, of the jobless claims that the Department of Labor is getting, new jobless claims, are fraudulent. My beautiful wife, who's standing back there and doesn't want me to point her out, the other day we got say hi, honey. We got a letter in the mail that she had fired herself from our restaurant and was applying for unemployment. How many people in here have gotten a letter saying they claimed for unemployment? Yeah, I did not, but my wife did. And as business owners, we're getting like 5 and 10 claims a week for people who either are working for us or have never worked for us. We are a target of fraud in this state. We've paid over $1 billion out in unemployment claims. And nobody knows in the Department of Labor how many of those were fraudulent. Because we're like, Governor Kelly, I think it was yesterday, just announced a new labor secretary. I think she's number 3 or number 4 since COVID started, because she just keeps firing people because they can't get a hold of the problem. We've got an issue, and it's not unsolvable, because the 47 states that are doing better than us don't have this problem, or have this problem to a lesser degree. And so we have been targeted for fraud. Actually, it's gotten so bad that this weekend they've taken the unemployment system completely offline. You cannot apply for unemployment benefits this weekend, because they're putting a new mechanism in place to try to beef up the identity, the identity software, so that you have to answer some additional questions to prove you are who you say you are. Maybe that'll fix it, but it would have been great if we'd done that $1 billion ago, because the reason that I'm talking about this is that $1 billion, that's going to be paid, right? That's got to come from somewhere. There's no more. We can't just print money in Washington forever. That is gonna be borne by business owners, because the way that unemployment gets paid is when I hire somebody, like one of these great servers that's been helping you today. I have to pay unemployment insurance for them, and it goes into a fund, so that if somebody's unemployed and they apply for unemployment, they get paid out of that fund. Well, that fund's now, it's darn near gone. They kept pumping COVID stimulus money into it. If you're wondering why a lot of other things weren't getting done to help people, it's because we were paying these $1 billion in unemployment benefits that were going off to Nigeria or somewhere, wherever the fraudsters are. So when that bill comes due, it's going to be business owners that have to pay it. And I mean, we already are, we're already crushed by the property taxes. Now we're going to be crushed by the unemployment insurance. We heard in testimony from some experts this week that it's going to cost as much for your unemployment insurance as it does for your income tax next year. If we don't fix this, do something to remedy this, and that's people are going to have to fire people, because every employee I have to pay unemployment insurance, and now it's going to be as much as my income tax, which is ridiculously high because they raised it for 3 years in a row. I'm going to have to let somebody go. I can't afford it. And I mean, I don't want to do that. So step one was stop the bleeding, and God willing, we made enough noise. I had a lot of people when I was talking about it on Facebook, why don't you stop complaining and do something about it? Well, complaining was doing something about it. We had to make Governor Kelly do something about it, because they were just throwing up their hands and saying, we don't know. For a year, they've been throwing up their hands saying, we don't know how big the problem is, we'll get back to you. And that was not going to cut it anymore, and we're all back. And we finally complained enough that we got her to fire the labor secretary and shut it down and put some additional safeguards. So we've stopped the bleeding, but we've got to do something to relieve this burden so that we don't have to, we don't have a second wave of unemployment. And there's a lot of different discussions going around in the building there at the state capitol about how to get after it. But frankly, we might have to take some of that COVID relief that we were hoping to do things to build infrastructure and build, broadband with, and use it to pay this, pay to fix the damage because of the incompetence in the unemployment system. But there's another thing that another way that this really endangers bringing jobs back to Kansas and back to Leavenworth. And as an example, I'm going to use one of, we have the restaurant here, we've got a place in Lawrence, and we've got a couple places in Manhattan. We're going to have to close one of our places in Manhattan. We closed it in April when COVID hit. KSU sent all their students home, and we tried to take care of the employees as long as we could, but we couldn't afford it, so they went on unemployment. And they're now making more on unemployment than they do working, and they are continuing to do that. And so now we're in a position where we're paying the rent, we're paying the electric, we're paying the gas, and we can't get enough employees back to work in that restaurant, and so we're going to end up closing it. Now the good news is, we were working on this noodle shop over here, and now we got all the equipment because we were able to move the equipment from there here. But those jobs are just gone there because they're not when the unemployment plus up the additional money on top of regular unemployment drops off. Those people aren't going to be able to go back to those jobs because they don't exist anymore. And that's one example in Manhattan, but that's happening all over here in Leavenworth. When I talk to small business owners, everybody is scrambling to stay open because they don't have enough employees to work, because a lot of employees are on unemployment. They don't want to come back to work. A lot of contractors, because a lot of the construction work's hard work, and some of those construction folks, they're just taking the unemployment. And so there are a lot of, this unemployment system has been twisted and pulled and morphed between people committing fraud against it and people that are riding it when they've got jobs waiting for them. And every week, if there's an employee that used to work for me and they're on unemployment, they ask me, what's going on with this employee? And I put in big 1.5-inch letters, there's a job waiting for this person, they won't come back, which should disqualify them and force them to come back. But because the labor system's, the unemployment system's so broke that they're just writing the checks. Like the first Secretary of Labor got fired because the checks weren't getting out fast enough, so they're just writing checks. If somebody asks, they get a check, and so that's not working for us. And so there's a lot of work to do with our employment system so we can get those folks back into the economy. And you know what? I'm not riding those folks that are on unemployment. I can understand somebody riding them because a lot of people have worked straight through this pandemic while some people have been sitting at home getting unemployment that could have a job if they wanted. So I understand why some people are angry about it, but that's not what's got me most concerned. You know, what got me started running was all those folks that are trapped in government dependency up in my neighborhood, up in North Leavenworth, that are just stuck in that cycle. I saw a number, it's a few months old, but 30,000 more people, or 25,000 I think it was, more people have been added to the food stamp rolls since COVID started here in Kansas, just in Kansas. Those are people that are now in the system, that are now in that system of generational poverty that may not come back out of it, because it's a high hurdle. If I'm an employer, I cannot compete with food stamps plus unemployment plus free phone plus, if the Democrats have their way, Medicaid expansion, free health care. I mean, gosh, I might go unemployed so I can get all, I mean, I'm being facetious, but it's corrosive. It's corrosive of our town, it's corrosive of our society, it's corrosive of our small businesses that can't get employees, and it hurts the individual. It hurts the individual because they're trapped, and it just creates such a high hurdle they can't get out of it. It creates an inertia. And so that's, I'm very concerned about it. Please.
I've had a problem with employment, mainly because I've had an
Yeah.
illness.
Yeah,
But I have started school,
yeah,
doing something that I know I
Yeah.
can do
Yeah.
to get myself out of this
Yeah.
mess.
yeah,
We need to get the moms that have been brought up on welfare, bringing her kids up on
Yeah.
welfare,
Yeah.
where they have the whole 9 yards. That's one place we've got to start
yeah,
too.
yeah. And that's, you know, and that, I came in with a whole bunch of stuff I want to do, and I can only do so many things at a time because and so that's my big project is we've got to create an off-ramp out of this cycle of poverty that people are in, this cycle of government dependency. That's my big goal, but I'm trying to pick the low-hanging fruit first. And so if we can fix the property tax thing so there's money to hire people, and we can fix the unemployment so that people are incentivized to go back to work, and we're not hemorrhaging money and increasing the amount that you have to pay for unemployment insurance. That's the low-hanging fruit I think we can get at this first session. But my long-term goal is exactly what you're describing. We got to help. Poverty kills just as fast as COVID, and we got a lot of people that they're like second and third generation in government dependency, and we got to do something. It is immoral to keep people trapped in the system, and so we got to do something, anything we can to lift people out of the system. And the first step's not putting more people in the system by a broken unemployment system that encourages people to stay home. So I want to talk about a couple other things that I personally am doing, my bills that I'm carrying in the House that are, they're smaller promises, but they're important promises that I'm working on. I just want to give you an update on it. And then we'll open it up and we'll take questions for as long as you want. So politicians here in Leavenworth for the last 4 years have been saying they're going to bring a veterans home to Northeast Kansas. The problem was we kept sending a Democrat to the House, and Democrats can't carry bills on the floor. They don't get the opportunity because it's a super majority of Republicans there. That if you're not a Republican, carrying a bill, it just doesn't happen. I'm not making a moral judgment on whether that's right or wrong. I'm just telling you that that's practically how stuff works in Topeka, because the leadership's Republican and the majority's Republican. So the Republican stuff gets done, and the Democrat stuff gets talked about in campaigns and promised, right? And so one of the promises I made was that I was going to fight to get this thing done that we've been talking about forever. And before the session even started, before I was even sworn in, I went up to Topeka and I got them working on the bills, working with the reviser, and I introduced these bills. They're sponsored by me, but they're co-sponsored by all the entire House delegation from Leavenworth County. Tim Johnson, Lance Neely, David French are signed on. I've also got a couple other legislators signed on to help me get it through. So there's two parts to it. There's a money bill to get the money, and then there's a grant bill for Kansas to ask the federal government to pay for 65% of it. It's a pretty good deal. We pay 35%. The VA in Washington pays 65%, and we get our veterans home here in Northeast Kansas. I got a hearing in the Appropriations Committee, and I think it might be, don't quote me on this, but I think it might be the first time that these bills that have been floating around forever that we've been trying to get done, I think it's the first time they've ever gotten a hearing in a committee. I'm not certain, but I think so. And I got it in appropriations. We had a bunch of people testify. The former president of the VFW in Kansas, or commander of the Kansas VFW, some great veterans. I testified. Chris Croft, who's a retired colonel, who's now a legislator from Johnson County, he testified. And now I'm haggling, right? I'm talking to all those legislators in that committee so I can get it out of committee so I can get it to the floor. But we are making forward progress on it. The bills are moving, and I'm hoping to get it to the floor of the House for a vote this session. I'm gonna, if you know me, if you've known me for a while, when I get an idea in my head, I'm pretty tenacious about it. So, and I got a lot of great help from the rest of the legislators here in Leavenworth and at Leavenworth County. So hopefully we can get it done. The other bill, when I was going around campaigning, and I started talking to corrections officers, and I was hearing, it was in the midst of COVID, and I was hearing all the horrible stories of what was, what they were having to endure day in and day out to keep us safe, to keep those prisoners alive and safe, but to keep us safe out here. It really moved me to try to do something to properly compensate them for what they do. That job is every bit as hard as being a policeman or a fireman, and they're law enforcement officers. If you go to the memorial, the law enforcement memorial out in front of the state capitol, their names, the names of every fallen law enforcement officer in the state of Kansas is on that monument. Their names are right there next to KBI officers or investigators, next to police officers, next to sheriff's deputies and patrolmen. Their job's every bit as dangerous and just as hard on their bodies and their souls as being a policeman or being a fireman or any of those other frontline responders. But their retirement sucks compared to a policeman or a fireman. And I think that if you do that, if you do work that's every bit as challenging and every bit as dangerous, then when you've done that for a lifetime, the state of Kansas owes you being compensated just as well as those other law enforcement professionals. And so a bill that I got drafted, that I've introduced into the Insurance and Pensions Committee, which I'm a part of, is basically gives the current corrections officers the option of moving to capers for police and fire, the retirement system for police and firemen, and then all new corrections officers, the guards, the actual security officers, they will automatically be enrolled in capers for police and fire. And so they get a little bit better compensation. They don't have to wait as long to retire because it's pretty tough to make it to retirement doing that work. And a lot of people don't make it. A lot of people, they leave early and they take their money and they go someplace else. Yes, ma'am?
Pat, aren't the guards, corrections officers, aren't they hired through CCOA?
I'm not familiar with the acronym. I'm sorry.
It's
Sorry.
Corporations of America. It's corrections. That's it.
Okay.
Corporation of America.
So all of our actual guards are Kansas State employees. Is that the question you're asking?
Yeah, but
Yeah,
I thought they were part of.
I don't know how they're recruited. I honestly, all I know is they put a sign up in front of Lansing Correctional Facility, say we need guys. So I don't know the actual organization that recruits them, but they are Kansas State employees. Now there are some contractors that work in Lansing Correctional Facility doing upkeep for the new part of the prison, and the medical people are contractors. But most of the people in that building, I don't know the exact percentage, but most of them are Kansas State employees. And I'm talking about the guards. Okay, I would love to do something for everybody in there, but I'm talking about the guards, the people that are actually doing the corrections officer work and their supervisors. So that's who I'm talking about with this bill, because I got to work in the realm of the achievable. And maybe if we get this done, I can circle around and do something for everybody else. But right now, I'm just concerned about those folks because they're the ones I think I can get done.
A quick question
Yeah.
on that is, I know someone who's about to retire, who's a prison
Yeah.
guard, are people in this
Yeah.
bucket who are just, who spent, you know, did that hard tour?
Yeah.
And finally got to the end, are they gonna get
Yeah.
extra compensation
Yeah,
somehow? some way?
so that was a big question with the bill, and the way it's written right now, and if I can get it through,
Well,
I'm gonna
people
get it.
who are already on
Yeah,
the retirement.
so if you're a current member in Capers, you can switch over. Where the horse trading's gonna come is with people that have already retired from the system. Right now, the way the bill's written, they're members of KP&F as soon as this bill passes. I'm not sure I'm gonna be able to get that through, because the benefits are a little higher. And, you know, and
So it
right
doesn't,
now
but it
we're
doesn't
not-
talk about people who are already in the
Yeah,
retirement.
it
bucket.
doesn't, right now it talks, right now, they go over to KP&F if they want to. That's the way it's written right now, it's because they're current members of KP&F, but I don't know that that's gonna survive. I'm just trying to be, I don't wanna oversell, I don't wanna promise things I can't get done, and so that's how I've written it. I don't know that it's gonna make it. I'm being realistic. If I can get done what, 90% of what's in the bill, I'm gonna take it instead of, throw my hands up and take my ball and go home over that 10%. We'll circle around and try to do something for those guys, but, that's a great question. Thank you. Okay, so that's the stuff that I have planned to talk about, and I know some folks threw out some questions during it, but if you still got questions about those things or anything else, I wanna talk about it, so. You already had one, I'll come back to you, I'm sorry.
No,
Oh, yeah.
I'm going back to the unemployment here in Kansas. I know, and I guess they don't do it anymore, but it used to be that when you file for unemployment in the state of Kansas, there had to be an investigation first.
Yeah.
Are they not doing that anymore?
Yeah, so what's happening is the investigation for whether you're eligible, is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
About the investigation is they send a letter to us, I'm pointing at my wife, because she gets a letter and then she hands it to me. Yeah.
Even though they're not
Yeah.
unemployed right now, like all the letters,
Yeah.
we got it every single day.
Yeah.
They send it to Manhattan location, and we here, my employee take a picture and send it to us, we can't do nothing until we got that letter on our own hand. And for us to get that letter, that means we have to overnight it. We can't afford to overnight it every single day, and if we don't fill that out, then we're gonna have to pay those people we not even know.
So she gets a letter and then I get the letter from her, she says fix it. And so I have to, but that's the investigation, is they write the employer and they say what's going on with this employee. And what's supposed to happen is when that human doesn't exist, I write in big 2-inch letters, this is fraud, this person never worked for me. I send it back and then they send the police to his house. That's what's supposed to happen because he's committed fraud. What's happening is they're so overwhelmed that they're signing the check, they're sending that guy unemployment, and then it hits the bank account that they filed with, and 3 minutes later it's in Nigeria or wherever the people that are running this scam live. And it's happening a million times. I mean, that's the numbers we're talking about. It's $1 million plus. I think the number I heard is 1.1, but it's over 1 million new claims in the state of Kansas. We only got 1 million something people working in Kansas.
But that seems that would be simple to fix. If the
Yeah.
bank knows that it's being transferred from here to someplace in a foreign country, they ought to be able to
Yeah.
identify that and put a hold on it until it's investigated.
Yeah.
Not only that, but someone
Yeah.
here, I would think, would have had to have established that
Yeah.
bank
So,
account.
I mean, yeah, somebody,
Not necessarily.
yeah.
Has been here as a.
The step one is you have to identify that it's actually fraudulent.
Right, right.
And right now, the Department of Labor is not doing step one. And if you don't do step one, you can't exercise all the legal mechanisms to catch the person who's doing it and stop the money from leaving the state. You're absolutely right. Okay, yeah, Terry Lewis.
So, President Biden, has, as I understand it, given over the power grid to foreign nationals to maintain. I was told that as citizens, we could write our state attorney general and ask him to fight that, and that's kind of a blindsided question, you may need
Yeah.
to research it, but I'd like to know if that's a valid response.
Honestly, I would like to research it because I hadn't heard that.
What did she say? I couldn't hear.
Yeah, she was talking about, could you say it a little louder for me?
Sure, so Biden has transferred on the power grid to foreign nationals to maintain that. And as I understood it, that we were to write, as citizens, we are to write our state attorney general and ask him to fight that at a state's level. So I just was asking if that's a valid action on our
Yeah.
part, if that will actually do anything.
Yeah, and I'll dig into that. I'm not familiar with that, but I'll dig into it, and
And you
if
can
that
just
is the case,
reply.
if it is the case, I'll make sure everybody has the mechanism to write the Attorney General, because
Thank
that's
you.
not a good thing. Yeah, yes, sir. There's somebody over here. Oh, yeah, John.
One of the things I'm concerned about when it comes to property taxes is the assessment by the school board. It seems like they got free run.
Yeah.
And I do go to the county meeting.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, I know.
better than
I've seen you there.
90%
Yeah.
attendance there. And some of them, they really take it seriously.
Yeah.
How can we
Yeah.
lower the taxes, lower the mill levy?
Yeah.
But, when you lower the mill levy, of course, that's a cut in your income.
Yeah.
And there is quite a bit of need here.
Yeah.
Just to run our government.
Yeah.
I do encourage everybody, especially in this room, to go to a county commission meeting. If you're working or can't go, watch it on TV.
Yeah, they're all on YouTube. You can, after the fact, you can watch them actually, you can watch them live on YouTube
Yeah,
while they're
yeah.
happening. If you wanna sneak out while you're working, you can turn it on
How
on your
can we
computer.
get a hold of school
Yeah.
boards to
Yeah,
put the cramp on them?
yeah, that's a great question, John.
Well,
Yeah.
it's a double
Yeah.
sided coin. Yeah, we need better education.
Yeah.
And the attributes of it. But
Yeah,
as I've heard stated, actually by one of our commissioners, our, I'll say the retirement people are being taxed down or out.
yep, so, I wanna catch people up with the conversation we're having, because a lot of people don't know these things when I tell them, and they're like shocked. And I, frankly, before 2 years ago, I didn't know I was running for anything, and I didn't know these things either, but as I started campaigning and I started learning, I found these things out. So first of all, did you know that most of your property tax assessment is the school board? The mill levy for the school board is huge compared to the city or the county. So most of the property taxes you pay are to whatever school district you live in, whether you got kids in school or not, whether you think the school's doing a good job or not is irrelevant. You're paying most of your property taxes to the school district. And I don't know the exact percentages, and it may not be it's definitely a plurality. It might not be half of your property taxes depending on where you live. But in some places it's more, like here. I think it's more here. So that's the first thing. Second thing is that property tax lid law that I talked about that said they can't raise your mill levy without a vote of the people. Guess who's not under that? The school board. The school board is exempt from that law. They are not a member of they're not under the tax lid. So tomorrow, the school board, we've got some pretty good school board members. We've got some conservatives there. And that's why our kids are still in school here in Leavenworth. But they could tomorrow raise your mill levy without a vote if they wanted to do that, or as part of the budget hearing process. They'd have to. I'm exaggerating a bit. They'd have to announce that they were going to do that so that you could have the opportunity to be in the meeting. They don't have to give you public comment, as we found out with mask ordinances and the city commission. But they can raise it without a vote of the people. And the third thing is, did you know that every school in the state is under this formula? It's called equalization. So if one city or one school district decided, you know what, we don't like property taxes and we're going to cut ours down to the basement, our property taxes would have to be used to make up to get them to basically equal. I think it's 25% above or below the average. That's what every school district is going to get in property taxes. So if one school district decides to drop the mill levy so that they're collecting half of the average for the state would take all our property taxes and give them that 25% to get them up to 75%. And conversely, if I really love schools and I love our kids and I want to tax it 200% of the average, the state will take 75% of that, you know, or I doing public math now, I'm gonna stop. But they'll take everything except 100%, 125% of the average and spread it out across the rest of the state so that you're equalized. That's a law. None of those things make any darn sense to me. Now, I told everybody when I ran, my number one priority, I'm laser focused on bringing jobs and opportunity back to the state. And so I gotta pick my battles to what I can get done fastest and what can have the biggest impact. And so I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm not working on it right now, but I got some pretty pointed questions that I wanna ask of the folks that wrote that law and of the Department of Education here in Kansas and of the Kansas School Board and the School Board Association and all those folks that were involved in lobbying to get those laws written the way they were. And you know what, we can have further discussion on this, but I frankly think that the where we're funding our schools here in this district, I have 2 school districts in the district. I have the Fort Leavenworth School District, and then I've got the Leavenworth School District. I sat down with both of those superintendents before I came in, and I also talked to a lot of the school board members here in the Leavenworth School Board. And I think we're, you know, I don't think that like here in this town we've got that big a problem, but across the state we got some huge damn problems. You know, sorry, excuse my French. Down in Shawnee, in the Shawnee School District, they got like 6 administrators making 6 figures.
Oh, yeah, it's always been.
What are the other 5 doing? I got the superintendent, you know, you gotta attract talent, I got that. What do those other 6 guys do for 6-figure salaries? What?
Well, the problem is you have to have a certain degree to be a school administrator.
Yeah.
And there's this many that have the degree.
Yeah.
Now, you gotta understand that they were former teachers, so they don't have a freaking clue about how to manage a business.
Yeah.
And so, that is why, I'm not defending it, but that is why it's basic economics, supply and demand. But a business person that's been in business for 50 years couldn't go in and run a school system because they don't have the right education.
Yeah. But you know, there's probably people gonna be watching this home, they're gonna be like, well, why does Pat Proctor care about administrators in Shawnee Mission making 6 figures? What's that have to do with Leavenworth? Well, what that has to do with Leavenworth is first that equalization thing, we're all paying for that, but also there is state tax money that goes directly into the education system. And I don't know why I'm paying for 6 administrators to have 6-figure salaries in Shawnee. And so I think that, you know, I think that we need to look at it. I'm an educator. In addition to being a business owner and a state legislator, I'm also a professor at Wichita State. I get the product of our K-12 education system. I'm all for education spending because I get the results, right? And so I want students that are ready or college ready. But the stats speak for themselves. We are not graduating kids in the state that are college ready or workforce ready, but we are spending more and more every year, well over the rate of inflation. Education spending's going up. So you're not hearing me say I want to cut education spending. You're hearing me say I want to know where the darn dollars are going. And I want to make sure that they're going to the classroom and to teachers. Teachers have been getting pay cuts every year, 7% in real dollars every year. Their salaries going down, while 6 administrators are making 6-figure salaries in Shawnee. So I just want to bring accountability to it, make sure the dollars are going where they need to go. So
how about also doing away with collective bargaining? Because school boards have to deal with the union, whatever.
And how about all of our kids going back to school? How about that? You know, they're, and Topeka just went, I believe it's a Topeka school district just went back to complete remote learning. This is hurting our kids. It's hurt, you know, there's more to school than, you know, reading, writing, and arithmetic. There's learning how to be an adult, learning how to socialize and how to work together, learn how to be part of a team and kids' athletics. And sometimes we emphasize, you know, intangible stuff too much. You know, sometimes like we're pushing out the reading, writing, and arithmetic. But I'm going to tell you, kids sitting in front of a computer are not learning as well as kids sitting in a classroom being taught by a professional and qualified teacher. Yeah.
They don't get unemployment.
When I lived in Johnson County, within a 15-minute drive, I could hit 4 of those superintendents that were making that excessive salary. California, with their millions of students, have something like 50 school districts. So when you start working on that, I would like to see consolidated school districts and one superintendent.
Yeah. So as an aside, another thing that costs our state a whole gob of money that is being robbed out of the economy because it's taxing you and me to pay for, the number of people the percentage of people in Kansas that work for the government is so much higher in Kansas than many, many other states. I'm not going to quote you the percentage because I've forgotten it, but where we rank in terms of government spending, spending for government employees is so much higher than so many other states, and it's because a gajillion school districts, a gajillion county. I mean, we have 105 counties in Kansas. And there are counties out west that got like 1,000 people in them, 2,000 people in them, 1,500 people in them. And those governments get funded, but also they get retirement benefits, capers. You know, their police departments get capers for police and fire. So yeah, we spend a lot of money on a lot of governmental units, and I know that's only popular with my colleagues in the legislature that represent all those counties, but you know, one of the great conservative legislators in our in a couple committees with me, she said that she has more cows than people in her district, you know, and then when legislators in those districts list off all the counties in their district, I don't even have all of one city. You know, I share Fort Leavenworth and Leavenworth and these governmental units with just tiny numbers of people. It costs the state a lot of money. Yep. I'm going to take a couple more questions, including yours. I'm going to take a couple more questions because I want to respect everybody's time, and then I'll hang out as long as you want if you want to talk to me individually, because I want people to. Some people are just like, I want to get up while it's
So I want to go back to your comments about the administrators. So what Kansas, in my opinion, should do, we do nothing to consolidate school districts. Why is Leavenworth and Lansing and Tonganoxie and Baser, why are they all separate school systems?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying they all should be one,
Yeah.
but maybe Leavenworth Lansing should be one, and you cut your administrators in half.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, we've got more justification for it than like out west, where you got like one school district with, 100 kids, I mean, I'm exaggerating, but not by much, and so I think, I think there's consolidation to be done, but I'd like to start with school districts with less than 1,000 kids in it before I start, because we've got relatively large school districts, but I agree with you in principle that there are too many government units and it's costing us a fortune to run them. April, do you have some?
Well, this is easy. How many representatives are in the House?
125. That's the easiest question I've got. No. Yeah, it's 125. So, okay, and then I'll take one more. Garrett?
I have a question about elections.
Yes, sir.
The Dominion software, I've heard that some counties are using that. Is that true?
Yeah. So there are, I'm not going to quote you the number, but it's a single-digit number of counties that were using Dominion. And I'm on the elections committee. And when I heard I was going to be on the elections committee before the election, I'm like, well, great, that's going to be boring. And then the election happened. I'm like, yeah, I'm on the elections committee. Let's go to work, right? And so before I even swore in, it was actually the day of the inauguration. or not the day of the inauguration, it was the day that the vote was certified in Congress and all the craziness happened. I was actually in the Secretary of State's office talking to the elections professionals in the elections. So I asked that question about Dominion, and there are a handful of counties, a handful. It's actually like parts of counties, but where Dominion did the counting, right? But it's not many.
But is it a high density population
Yeah,
area?
yeah. So, but this is what convinced me that I think that it didn't affect Kansas. We have a system in Kansas where they have to conduct random audits of precincts. Every county they pull out of a hat, and they literally, they pull it out of a paper bag, and they actually do this. This is no kidding. And you can actually go watch this, though it might be the most boring government function that you'll ever watch happen. They have a big auditorium up in the second or third floor of the the Department of State, Kansas Department of State, and they put all these bags on the table, one for each county, and all the precinct numbers are in the bag, right? So it's no computers touch it. And they draw a precinct from every one of those counties, or multiple precincts. I'm not exactly sure how the formula works for the big counties, but they pull precincts out of these bags. And then for those precincts, including the counties that use Dominion, they had to do a hand count of every ballot, where they take the ballot that the actual voter marked, and they circle in the circle, they circled in the circle, and they have to hand count every vote in that precinct and make sure that it matches what was reported through Dominion software. And in Kansas, I'm not talking about the whole state, but they convinced me, I'm confident that in Kansas, that Dominion did not go hinky with our vote. I cannot speak intelligently to what happened in any other state. Okay, so hey, we've been going a long time. I'm gonna let y'all out of here, but if you want to stay and ask questions, I'll stay as long as you want. So thank you very much.